2024. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to 2024, which is already going strong for about 2 weeks now, and I've also released some videos already, so it's not really that new a year as such. But hey, we're just in time for the flames of your resolutions to finally die out, so instead of going to the gym like you probably should, why don't you take this time to sit down with me and take a look at what this weird number right here even really means. It's an iPod mini, fully charged. And this guy right here came out in 2005, which is going to be 19 years ago, yet I still use it every day. Look, it's a Sam. And this thing right here will be turning 11 years old this very year. That's something which is like really weird to me, because I remember when this came out, it was like the best top of the line phone that you could get your hands on. Now let us try and load a web page, shall we? There we go, yay! Look at this channel right here. Boy, that took a while though. It should probably come as no surprise that I don't use this every day anymore. The biggest reason why I can still use the iPod every day, but not the much newer smartphone, is because most smart devices require a connection to someone else's computer in order to use them. What is on these computers generally tend to be websites and content that are like optimized for the newest, latest, most powerful hardware. However, something like this will never really get more powerful than it is. So one day it will just not be able to keep up anymore. This iPod right here just uses itself to work. So as long as it works when you buy it, it should continue to work just fine, no matter what year it is. Or should it? Because one other thing that you may notice when you're trying to use an old phone like this is that it just doesn't last as long anymore. And the same thing is true about this iPod as well, which, if you recall, was fully charged at the start of this video, but now is already sitting at like almost empty. However, this is something that we can fix, because just like you and I, most devices can be kept up and running just fine with a little bit of attention. And whilst we may have already collectively given up on staying in shape for this year, let's go take a look at a couple ways in which we can keep our devices in good shape. The best place to begin for devices with batteries that don't stay on for very long is with a battery replacement, which is very simply just what it says, taking the old batteries out of the device and then taking new ones and putting them right in. But why does this work? I mean, it's simple, right? New batteries are better since they have more life in them as they haven't been used yet. But is that saying anything other than they're better because they're new? In order to understand how this works, let us go and take a look at a battery right here, stay, and its bigger brother. Oh man, look at the size difference between the two. Generally, when I think of batteries, I kind of think that these things are some sort of like a metal thing that takes like the sparks that Pikachu puts out, you know, like those yellow ones, and then like it puts it inside of itself in some way. However, that's not really how batteries work at all. Now, as far as I understand it, batteries aren't like this hunk of metal, but instead they're actually like a metal container that contains a bunch of chemicals. Now, chemicals, as far as I think are useful in this illustration, are just like little constructions out of different pieces, like different things, which if you combine them into like different shapes, like they become different chemicals, and they can have what we can call like an electron, which is like a particle of electricity. So we have different kinds of like chemicals right here that have electrons, and then we have other chemicals right here which want to accept electrons, but they don't have them. These two things are separated out in the battery. And then if we take a wire, and then we take like a little light, right there, the moment that these two parts are connected, these electrons can actually like travel through the wire, like turn on the light because they're traveling through here, and then they come here where they are accepted here by these chemicals right here. The moment that all these electrons have traveled from like this end to that end is when the battery is empty, because there's no movement to be going on anymore, and the light will not turn on anymore because everything is over there. That's when the battery is at 0%. Now, when we have a rechargeable battery, basically what we're doing is like we're grabbing the electrons from here and we're forcing them all the way back to this side here. However, what can sometimes happen somewhere in the process is that one of these like chemicals right here gets connected like this. And what happens then is that like here, one electron can go here, the other electron can go there, but now there's no way to store this one right here. So what we see right now is that our capacity for like storing electrons has diminished. Like we now only have 2 spots. This is something that can happen every single time that we use the battery, and it's also more likely when we completely discharge the battery to 0%. Another thing that can cause like these chemical reactions inside your battery is heat, which is something that tends to happen when you charge your battery all the way up to 100%, which is like kind of the time that your battery tends to get hot. In short then, like a new battery is better because it has like more chemicals in the right shape in which it can store the electricity. Now the price for a new battery tends to differ a lot per device. However, for both the iPod right here and the Samsung Samsung S4, like both these batteries are between like 15 to 20 bucks. And oftentimes, like when you have an older device for which you can get a newer battery, like their capacity will also be a little bit higher because like we've had like new innovations in battery technology. To replace a battery of like these old phones, it's like super simple because you just pop the back off like this, remove this thing right here, take the new battery, slot it back in. For other devices like this iPod, it can be a little bit harder as you will have to take them apart, which is something I would have loved to show you if it wasn't for the fact that my camera just crashed and I lost about half an hour footage, which included like me taking the thing apart and all that sort of stuff. Like this is the thing where the battery was in. This, by the way, is like the original iPod battery, which is kind of cool to see. But yeah, my iPod right now is like, it needs to charge to 100% and I can't take it out. So yeah, like that bit I can't show you anymore. But yeah, if you want to see how the iPod is taken apart, just go look at like the video I did about like taking the iPod apart and putting storage in it. It's basically the same thing. Sorry about that. Moving on with the video. When it comes to looking for batteries, I would really recommend like sticking to like trustworthy websites. So like the manufacturer's site or something like iFixit, since, you know, we just established that batteries are just containers of dangerous chemicals. So you want to make sure that these things are of high quality or things can go very wrong. Now don't worry if it's like super hard to picture all these chemicals and batteries and how they work, because if you let your battery sit long enough, the chemicals will start coming out. Like, ugh. I don't really like touching this at all. And it's not just me who doesn't like touching it, your devices really don't like touching them either. This is something which can be an absolute curse when you first learn of this. Batteries are boxes of chemicals which will react and leak over time, and they can absolutely destroy your device. This right here is a speaker, which I'll put some batteries in and left them in, and as you can see, they started to leak and it affected all the sides right here. But you know, like this is still somewhat okay. This calculator, however, I got for school. It's like a graphical calculator, so you can do like 1 + 1 is 2, or you can play Pokemon on this. It's really cool and there's a ton of stuff that you can do with these. However, right here you can see that there's like a little bit of corrosion there, and that entire pin there was just taken away. Now this thing won't turn on anymore. If there's a device that you're not using anymore, don't just take it, put it away and forget about it. Make sure to get these damn things out before they can start causing problems. And by the way, it's not just like these things. Oh man, these things can become very, very, very spicy pillows. I don't know if you can see that very well, but these things can start to react, and instead of like doing this, they'll start to swell. And if this is like inside your device and it punctures something, yeah, that can cause a fire. Batteries are very useful, but they can also be such a pain, especially when they're like inside a device and such. Xbox. This right here is an original Xbox. And I can already see you wondering, hey man, like, that's not a battery device. Right here, there's a power cord. So there are no batteries in here, right? Yeah, you'd think. But even devices that are powered via a wall plug still can have internal batteries inside them to keep things running, like the clock. Let's just open this thing up, shall we? There we go. This right here is the inside of an Xbox. And what you can see right here are little capacitors, which are kind of like little internal batteries, which charge up the moment that your like device is plugged into the wall. And the one that we're looking at for here is like this one right here. Like this is the clock capacitor. And the idea behind the clock capacitor is like this battery just gets charged when your Xbox is plugged in. And if you take it out, it will still keep the clock running, such that if you move your Xbox from one place to another, then you won't have to like reset the time and date again because it has lost that. However, as you may be able to tell, it's going a little bit bad. Now this one is still quite okay, however it is known to like start leaking over time, the same as what we saw with like this battery right here. Does that mean that you'll have to remove every single capacitor from like every single computer device that you own? Not at all. Like only this one is like known to be bad from like a bad batch, but generally like your capacitors should be okay, especially with more modern devices, but especially if you keep like really old devices around, it may be good to like check in on them like once in a while. Also do really watch out because these things can be charged and like a lot of them can hold like a very powerful charge, so they can be dangerous if you touch them. It's just that with this Xbox, this capacitor is known to go bad over time, so I kind of want to remove that, and I plan to do that in this video. However, because of like the footage corrupting and like this taking so much longer than I originally planned, basically I'm not going to get into this on this video. What you do need to do though is like take a soldering iron like this, and then basically like heat up the prongs to solder at the prongs. There's kind of like a paste which hold it together, and if you heat that up, then basically you can pull out the capacitor, and there it goes. This footage, by the way, is from like the overtime where I tried soldering for the first time, and like it should just work the same over here, and then this Xbox is protected for the future and I don't have to worry about it anymore. If you're not comfortable soldering though, like one thing that you can do to just like make your device a little bit better is just like kind of like clean it off, because as you can see, like this thing right here is just like super dusty. Especially devices like computers or consoles, which are just standing in a room with fans like going wild, are basically just like small time vacuum cleaners. And what happens with vacuum cleaners is that, well, they collect a lot of dust. And basically where there's dust, there's no air coming through the holes. So over time, your like computer or your like console could just like get clogged up with dust, and then like it's gonna get really hot, and that will affect your performance. So make sure you don't let it get this far, and just like once in a while just like clean the outside, but also sometimes clean the inside, because especially consoles don't really have good mesh that keeps the dust outside. Those are the two main things that I would recommend to keep your devices running for like a long period of time. Check on your batteries and keep them clean. If you're not that comfortable with opening things up and soldering and that sort of stuff, like that's totally okay. Just make sure that you check on the devices that have batteries like this and make sure that this doesn't happen. Because honestly, like I've seen so many devices like this because they were just stored away and people forgot about the batteries because they think, oh, nothing's gonna happen. And this just ruins them, and it's just not nice to deal with. And then if you have old devices like old consoles or old computers, just like dust them off once in a while and take a look around to see if everything looks okay. A lot of times when something starts leaking, you can kind of tell by the smell or just by looking inside whether everything seems okay. If you are more comfortable with opening things up, then like yeah, like the internal dust cleaning can be hugely satisfying, and just like making sure that everything is up to par is just like a good check to do once in a while with your devices. One thing which I also think works great is if you have like game devices like this is a Game Boy, or even remotes that have these little touch buttons, using a bit of cleaning alcohol and like an ear tip like this, you can clean the contacts of these buttons right here, which is oftentimes the cause why they sometimes stop working. So if you have devices, controllers, or remotes where the buttons seem to stop working, just remove like the parts here and then clean underneath there. And a lot of times that will just like make them work again, which is honestly just so fantastic when that works. So yeah, let's start out this year by looking after our devices, but probably more importantly, also looking after ourselves, because there's a lot more fun experiences coming to this channel, and I also hope there's a lot more fun things coming for you this year. Speaking of fun stuff, I already mentioned like a little bit back in the video that like I did something with soldering for like this overtime. Basically like just before this video, like I tried soldering for the first time because I'd never done this before, and I kind of wanted to practice before I would do this on the Xbox. If you want to see me fumble around with this for $1 a month, I make extra videos in the form of overtime. Check the link in the description below where you can support the channel or even get this stuff all for free. With that, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, even with the recording issues. I hope that it still came out okay, and thank you all so much again for watching. I will see you all next time.